Hope that's okay. So my hope is to, I thought about how to give this lecture. I've never done this before, so give me some credit if it's a little rough around the edges. I could give 1,001 rules, all the policies and practices and how to do this and how to do that, or I could try to just give a general orientation to how things work around here and then leave a big question period at the end so you guys can ask me, how do I do this and how do I do that? So the way that I've structured this is I want to talk a little bit about our culture at this school, what makes the way this school is run different than other schools and how that might affect you all as parents. I want to talk about some resources that we have at the school in case you have questions or needs, and then different opportunities if you're the kind of parent that likes to get involved and volunteer. And then I'll try to keep that portion brief so that there's lots of time to answer any questions that you guys might have. Before I jump into all of that, though, I wanted to introduce you all to the parent representatives. These are the people that, there's one in each classroom, sometimes there's two in a classroom, who have volunteered to be kind of a liaison between parents and the school. If you have a question or a concern, but you can't make it to my office, or you'd rather just have it go through a go-between, these are the people that can help you. And then they're also just a great resource if you want to ask a parent rather than a teacher, how does this work or how do we do things? Could I have the parent reps stand up so I can introduce you guys? All right. And I made a list to make sure I don't miss anyone. So, Mrs. Happel isn't here yet. That's okay. All right, so Mrs. Olsheim is the first grade parent rep. Is Mrs. Hinch here? Oh, okay. Mrs. Mandel is the third grade parent rep. There we are. Mrs. Happel is our kindergarten parent rep. Sorry to draw attention to you like that. Mrs. Rollinger is the parent representative for fourth grade. Is Mrs. Granado or Mrs. Kwan here? Oh, okay. I should have sent an email to Mrs. Kwan. That's my mistake. Mrs. Bradley is the sixth grade parent representative. Mrs. Wong is the seventh grade parent rep. Mrs. Schroeder is the eighth grade parent rep. And I don't see, is Mrs. Pham here? No? Oh, that's okay. Hey, I started too early. This is Mrs. Hinch. If you are in the second grade, she's your parent rep and can help you with things. All right, thank you guys all for being here. So, about a week ago, I was out with Mr. Cobra. He's the sixth grade grammar teacher. He's the grammar teacher at the school, the specialist for grammar, and the sixth grade homeroom teacher. And we were out at an event where you kind of meet a lot of people and you're talking about what you do for a living. And he said that he would only work at Van Damme Academy and that he moved from Japan to work at Van Damme Academy. And that's also true for me as well. I didn't move from Japan, I moved from Michigan, but I moved specifically to be at Van Damme Academy. And a lot of the teachers can say this, that my wife, Mrs. Steele, was hoping for years that she could get a job here, and same for Mr. Jones, the new office manager. And so naturally, the people we were talking to asked, well, what makes this school so special? Why do you guys want to work here and not anywhere else? Would you mind closing the door, Mrs. Olsheim? Thanks. And it's a hard question to answer because I could talk about a dozen different things, dozens of things that make the school special and unique. But the thing that I think best describes it is that at Van Damme, the education comes first. Learning comes first. There's a lot of things that we don't do. There's a lot of things that we skip. That other schools might be more attracted to because we don't want anything to get in the way of learning and in the way of teaching. And all of the teachers at the school can say that they like to be here because we get to teach in the way that we wish we would have been taught. So some things that fit under that heading. Some schools are a lot about hoop jumping. You got to meet this benchmark. You got to meet this expectation. You got to complete this assignment and that assignment just to get them done, just to do the participation. Whereas at Van Dam, we're far more focused on understanding. When you have a school that has a lot of hoop jumping, there becomes the expectation that you have to get 100% on every assignment. The goal is to get 100%, and then every point lost from there needs to be explained in some way. Whereas at Van Dam Academy, there's no easy A's at this school. We're much more likely to give out B's and C's than other schools, not because our students aren't as bright, but because we make sure that the subjects that we teach are truly engaging and challenging. Another difference that we have at the school that affects the culture here is that we're more concerned with long-term progress. Many of us are going to have a 3, 4, or 5-year relationship with our students, not just for 1 year. And we're not worried about making sure that they meet the benchmarks on the standardized tests so that we can get funding. Instead, we're getting to know them for a long period of time, and we're not scrutinizing each mistake that they make. Instead, we're helping them to grow over the long term. And still another thing that can make Van Dam Academy different than other schools is we put a strong emphasis on student independence. It's becoming the trend over the past couple of generations that parents are, how to put this delicately? It's almost as though there's the teacher here, there's the student here, and the parent is an agent mediating the exchange between the two of them. That the parents know every single assignment, the parents know every single test grade, and the parents are scrutinizing each thing that the child does. We encourage a lot more independence and responsibility from the students. And what this means for parents is that no news is good news. If things are just humming along at the school and you're not hearing from the teacher, you can pretty well assume that things are going well around here. And that your child is learning and developing just fine. So that's some of the academic differences we have around the school. One thing that's a little bit different too is the way that the school's structured and organized. I've visited other schools in the area. I won't name any names, but they seem like they're more of a lifestyle brand than they are a school, where when you go there, there's a whole lifestyle that goes along with it. We like to keep our administration as simple and bare bones as it possibly can be. Everyone that's in the administration, including me, the head of the school, is a teacher first. I spend half of my day teaching and half of my day administering at the school. So we don't have a large administration that's organizing a lot of fundraising and donation drives to have bigger buildings added on here because it gets in the way of our core mission of education. And so if you're coming from another environment, you might be used to some things in that environment that you won't run into here. So we don't have donation drives. We don't have those computer programs where you can check every grade that a child gets in real time. Instead, we keep things a little bit simpler because it makes it easier for us to focus on our goal of education. So that's just a little bit that I wanted to say about the culture of the school. There's a lot more that I could say. I could actually go on for quite a while. But I want to move on now to what some of the resources are around here. If you have questions or concerns or problems, what are the steps that you should take? If you want to know more about what's going on in the classroom, how can you get that information? Now, the best resource that we have is arrival and dismissal, what you guys have just been through now. The teachers are always available to walk in anytime during arrival or dismissal. I'm available for a meeting as well. You don't need an appointment to come into the office and say, I've got something I want to ask you about, something I'd like to hear about. So face-to-face is how we do a lot of our communication at the school. But if you can't make it in for a face-to-face meeting, the next best thing is email. We respond to all emails within 1 business day, and you can contact any teacher you want. You can contact me directly for any questions or concerns that you have. The rule of thumb that I would use is if it's a question about a specific subject, contact that teacher. If it's about general academics or the social life at the school, contact your child's homeroom teacher. And if it's a question about a teacher or about something bigger, send an email to me and I'll be happy to help you with those questions. Boy, I feel like I need to have some back and forth here. I feel like I'm bombing in the comedy routine. You know what? I've got more I want to get through, but I'll just pause and see. Do you guys have any questions about what I've covered so far about communication? Yeah.
What would be the difference between contacting, is it Tom Jones or yourself?
Oh, good question. So Tom Jones, he's the office manager, and I'm the head of school. You can contact, what's that?
You want me to go through him?
No, that's okay. If you want to contact me directly, you're welcome to do that. If it's smaller stuff like what's for hot lunch today, send it to him. If it's bigger stuff like I'm worried that my child isn't making friends or something like that, you can send that to me, not to Tom. I'm sure he'd be a deer in headlights if you said it. Yeah. Any other questions I can answer about communications? Okay, well, does the young guy have a question? Okay, so that's the quickest way to get your questions answered is to come talk to us face-to-face or through email. And then also the parent reps are, as I said before, a really, really good resource. We picked the parent reps for people who have had a few years of experience at the school. They know the ropes. They can give you some advice. Maybe you've got an issue and you just don't know who to talk to about it. The parent reps can be kind of the quarterback that helps direct the question where it needs to go.
Question.
Yes?
Where are these emails and how do I contact them?
Oh, sure. So the email addresses can all be found on our website, and they all follow the same formula. I'm Mr. Steele at VanDamAcademy.com. Miss Van Dam is Miss Van Dam at VanDamAcademy.com. The only exception is my wife, who is Mrs. Steele. We thought that might save confusion. I don't know if we made it better or worse. Okay. Now, another resource that's still in development is we're putting together an online calendar. It's kind of a Herculean task. It's going to have every event, big and small, that happens at the school that might affect you. Every field trip, every after-school event, every spirit day where the kids dress up funny. It'll all be on there, and it'll be a good place to go. It'll have a description of what the event is and any actions that parents might need to take related to that. We also send out email reminders, but for those who like to plan ahead, that calendar will be up by the end of the month to help you guys. Let me check my notes here. Okay. If you are hoping to learn more about how things are going in the classroom, keep up on assignments and so forth, there's 3 things that we provide that can help you to stay on top of things there. The first is weekly reviews. Every week you'll get in your email a nice digest of what the students have been learning in each subject and a lot of cute pictures of them running around at recess. And that's a good place to go just if you want to keep up on what subjects they're covering. Maybe you want to talk to them about whatever they're learning in history. Maybe you want to have conversations at the dinner table about their literature books. You can find all that information in the weekly review that we'll send out. If you want to know a bit more about your child's performance, just check to see how they're doing in their subjects. Each child has binders in their classrooms that you can take home at any time. Every assignment that they complete, this is something that I say with pride, every assignment that they complete gets graded and usually gets corrected and then gets filed away in chronological order, fingers crossed, chronological order, and into binders organized by subject. And so if you want to, you can just pick those up, take them home after school, and look at what's been happening in grammar class. Look at how they've been doing it with their history notes and so forth. And then you can check on how they've been performing on different assignments. You might need a little bit of help to parse exactly what the assignments mean. You can talk to the teachers about that, but those binders are for you to take home anytime after school that you'd like. If you want to stay up to date on the assignments that your children have, we don't have homework, or at least not much homework, But if you want to know what tests are coming up and what chapter they need to read for literature, all of that information can be found on the side of the whiteboard in the classroom. So if you're, oh yeah.
That's one thing. We do have to, especially since a lot of the new parents here are going to be K-1
Mhm.
parents, we should differentiate those universes.
That's
One is
true.
sort of a separate
Yeah.
world. So there are going to be no assignments on the board.
That's right, yeah.
And a lot of their work is with the Montessori materials. So they do have binders, but not as much of their progress or work will be as evident from
Mhm.
the material and binder. So there's just a little bit of a separate.
Yeah. So the K1 is a different universe in a lot of ways so there's work that they do that doesn't get filed away in the binder because it's with lots of cute little blocks that we can't put in the binders. So that covers the resources, how to stay up to date on what your children are learning and what they're doing. Any questions that I can answer for you guys about that topic? Well?
Besides the binders, there's like notebooks, right?
Oh, sure, yeah. Some subjects have materials outside of the binders as well. So in math class, they have a workbook that doesn't get put into the binders. When I was teaching history, they had history notebooks, but I don't know if Mr. Emmy is going to continue that tradition. He might be filing notes in the binders. So there might be binders plus something else if you're in 2nd grade through 8th grade and you want to stay up to date. All right, so there's a few opportunities that I wanted to go over as well for those who like to get involved and to volunteer. We have, I think, fewer volunteer opportunities than many schools just because of our small size. But for those that like to help out, there's a few things that can be done. First, we have the Class Act program, which requires a little bit of an explanation. The Class Act program, it's a partnership that we have with the Pacific Symphony Orchestra, where a musician comes in every year to teach our students about a different classical composer. This year, we're very happy that we get the bassoonist Elliot Moreau, who a few parents remember him from a few years ago. He was very captivating for the students. And this year's composer that we're studying is a little bit of a curveball. We're doing John Williams this year. So the kids will be listening to Indiana Jones, right? Yeah. I don't know how much we can analyze in Jaws, but we'll see what we can do.
I just had to quickly tell when we did Jaws a while ago that maybe it was Elliot played the notes from Jaws.
Mhm.
It said, "What animal do you think that is?" And they went, "A whale." Jaws.
Yeah. So it's a lovely program. It's really quite special that we get to have these musicians come in. They talk about their life as a musician and about the composers, and they teach us a little teensy bit of music theory. And then we get to have a concert we get to attend a concert at the Segerstrom. We also have a small concert here. A quartet or a quintet comes in to give a private performance for all the families here. And there are some parents that volunteer in that program. In fact, Van Dam has a reputation for having an excess of parents that volunteer for the program, that lay out a big spread for the musician whenever he shows up. But if you're interested, Tiffany Bradley is the lead volunteer. I don't know if we have space for more volunteers, but you're welcome to say hello.
If you're interested, just let me or Mr. Steele know.
Yeah. Another opportunity for parents is to be a chaperone on field trips. We take a number of field trips each year, always to an art museum, always to the Segerstrom Music Hall, and then something else. This year we're going to be going to some zoos and the Natural History Museum in San Diego. Depending on which grade, they'll go to a different destination. And we take chaperones on those trips. You're welcome to volunteer for that. I'll send out an email later that asks people if they want to volunteer. And we usually end up doing a lottery because we have more volunteers than we have spaces on the trips. The last volunteer opportunity, although someone correct me if there's something I'm forgetting, there's a few midday events that we have throughout the year. Halloween is always a really big one, and then the teacher appreciation lunch, I get a little embarrassed at how big it gets each year. Last year they made portraits for all of us. So those are opportunities. Mostly the parent reps organize those, but if you want to help out, you can talk to your parent rep and let them know that you're available to help put up spooky costumes or spooky decorations on Halloween. Then a few more opportunities for people that they're not necessarily volunteer opportunities, but just ways to be more involved in the community here. We have a number of really nice after-school events. We have a talent show every year. We have a science fair. We have that family night that from Class Act where the quintet comes in to perform. And we also have poetry recitals twice a year. So you guys are welcome to come in for all of those. They're really lovely events that it's really cute to see what the students and sometimes the teachers put together for the talent show and for the science fair. And then the last opportunity to go over is there's a number of informational events throughout the year. There are 4 parent rep meetings. They're kind of like a town hall where the parent reps meet with me to bring up any questions or concerns that they have, but anyone's welcome to come, even if you're not a parent rep. Then the last informational event is the coffee talks, which we started in earnest last year. 4 or 5 times a year, a different teacher will give a presentation on their subject, how they teach it, why they teach it, the value that kids get from it. It's not always academic. Last year I gave a talk on classroom management and the philosophy that we have for that. I love those events. I like fielding a lot of questions afterwards as well about how things work at the school. So that was a little bit longer than I was expecting, but that's all the quick hits that I wanted to go over with you guys, and I have a handout here that I'll give out when this is over just so that you can remember what all the resources and opportunities are. Does anyone want to ask any questions? How does this work? How does that work? What's going to happen at recess? What happens if my child gets a boo-boo or anything like that? Yeah.
I just have a quick question about the parking passes.
Sure.
When do you get those?
Oh, yeah, good. So parking passes. The temple takes security fairly seriously, and we issue parking passes to all of the parents that you just hang in your car, and the security guard will wave you through once you get here. There will be a stand in the hall at the end of the day where you can come sign for one, and we'll have that stand in the hallway for the next 2 or 3 days until most people have picked up their passes. Yes?
Sorry if I missed this, but what's the protocol on peanut butter? Or,
Oh, yeah.
I saw it on pork products, but
Mhm.
I'm assuming kindergarten,
Mm.
so I don't know if it's a different.
We don't have a no-nut policy at the school. You can bring peanut butter to the school if you'd like, but we do have a no food sharing policy that we try to enforce very strictly. And if your child does have a severe allergy that requires an EpiPen, you can keep that in the office, and we have a whole collection of those.
Right.
Yeah.
Peanut butter jelly, so.
Yeah. And she mentioned also that in the temple, they don't want us to bring pork or shellfish with our lunches. So we don't pack ham sandwiches if you can avoid it. Yeah.
Is there some kind of protocol we should be aware of for picking up?
For picking up? Oh, yeah. So pickup is going to be a lot like drop-off. Just park in the back of the building and come upstairs to grab your kid in the classroom. We do pick up. Parents come to the classroom to get their kids. Yes?
How do the hot lunches work here, the sign up and everything else?
So the hot lunch program is run by a man named Faustino who's the caterer for the temple, and he was very happy when we moved in because it's another customer base for him. And he cooks all the meals in-house here. There's a website that he has where you can sign up and pay via credit card for all the meals. And that's really all that you need to do on your end. There will be, right in that corner, he'll set up his station to serve everyone that has hot lunch. They'll line up after recess, get their lunches, and take their seat. Does that sufficiently answer the question?
When you sign up, do you have to sign up so many days in advance for the hot lunch?
Oh, yeah. So he typically you try to... Boy, I need to ask Mr. Emmy this because I'm not going to get it precisely right. You can do same-day orders. They're a little bit more expensive. And then most people will order, for the month at a time in advance. I should double check with Mr. Emmy to make sure I didn't say something wrong there. I'll take care.
They'll send out an email,
Oh.
with the hot lunch menu. Yeah.
Yes.
I don't need this class,
No.
but I have a bit of a commute in the morning for
Mhm.
my second child. So I would drop off Wade first and then bring him up to the room. How much engagement or ritual should I spend with the teacher? Or is it more just like a drop off and a wave and?
You can spend 0 if you want to. It's perfectly fine.
Okay. So get him through the door or get him up to the room or get him?
Up, at least
I
upstairs.
It's a hotter day after this. So
Oh boy.
yeah.
You do got quite a bit of time
Oh,
behind the
yeah.
wheel. Yeah. Ideally, we'd like you to bring them up to the classroom door. If you bring him up to the hall and wave him and see him go off, there's no SWAT team that will come down on you or anything. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay,
And yeah, you don't.
I didn't mean to sound crass. I'm just trying.
No, I'm glad that you were straightforward with that. There's no expectation like Mrs. Steele's not keeping a word count for who talks the most to her and who talks the least or anything like that. You be you, and that's fine.
I have 2 questions.
Mhm.
So what does happen during recess?
Mhm.
And then the second question is, are there picture days?
Oh yeah, so picture days I'll answer that because it's pretty quick. We're still booking it with our picture day company. We've been kissing a lot of toads in recent years, trying to find a picture day company that we really love. So that's going to be sometime in I think January or February, but in the second half of the year. Then for recess, it depends on the grade. The kindergarten has 3 recess, morning, lunch, and afternoon. Afternoon, they're by themselves. At lunchtime, it's kindergarten through 8th grade, all together outside. And in the morning, it's kindergarten through 3rd grade. So all the kids go downstairs. For the lunch recess, we have the security guard blocks off the back half of the parking lot, and we've got a lot of blacktop games out there. So we've got a bit more space during that time. And then there's always quite a lot of teachers out there. We have about 1 teacher per 30 students at recess, which is a pretty generous ratio from what I've seen at other schools. Does that answer your question sufficiently?
So it's more so blacktop games when they're out there.
Yeah, so there's blacktop games. They usually set up soccer nets or dodgeball or kickball on the grass out there. There's a basketball court as well. We have a ping pong table that sometimes gets used. And then, just whatever games they make up. There's also a corner where it's called the Fairy Gardens. And the parents that have been here know that there's a remarkable amount of drama and consternation over these piles of dust. It's these little sandboxes that we've made for them where they gather leaves and rocks and twigs and they build different structures, and I judge a contest every so often, and there's usually quite a lot of arguing over who stole a stick from whose fairy garden, but it's all good. It toughens them up. They learn how to establish property rights and negotiate with each other. Is that sufficient for recess? Okay. All right. I still have quite a bit of time before I have to get to my class. So if there's more, if the parent reps as well, if you, I know you guys have heard all this before. You're familiar with all this. If you need to leave early, that's a-okay with me. But sorry, you had a question?
Just if they get sick or
Okay. So if they get sick, sorry, say that again.
or get scraped up during recess, what's the protocol?
So the protocol, if they get, we have 4 teachers on staff that are first aid CPR trained. So if it's something really serious, we've got training in that. And then also another set of 4 teachers have taken stop the bleed training. The temple does a lot of active shooter training. So we always send quite a few teachers to that so that we're prepared. So there's quite a lot of people on staff that we're not nurses and doctors, but we have as much training as civilians have for those sorts of things. But for more run-of-the-mill scrapes and boo-boos and sore throats, the students will typically get sent to the office or escorted if they need to. We have our own protocol for figuring out, is this something that we just treat and send back to the classroom, or is this something that we call home for? Usually, if there's a fever or bodily fluids that we can see, then they'll be called and picked up. If it's just, a cut or a scrape or a sore throat, or they're just not feeling so great, we'll give them a pat on the back or a cough drop if they need it and take it from there. As a rule, we always write home for any bump on the head, even if it's just like anything harder than, a dodgeball hits them on the head. We write home about that just for safety's sake. So, yeah, I think that covers most of the Band-Aids and boo-boos. Is that answer for you? Okay. All right. If you have security questions, I do have a separate meeting just for that in mid-September, where I'll be happy to field any questions you have and talk about our emergency preparedness plans and so forth. Yes?
What about non-parents picking up after school? Do you need to have a designated name?
Yeah, so there's a form. You guys haven't gotten, I think your family hasn't gotten this form yet, but you'll be getting it soon, where it's the pickup authorization form, where you give a list of names of people that are authorized to pick up your child. If something changes in the middle of the day and you need to add someone to that list, you just call us and let us know who the new person is. If we don't recognize the phone number, we might ask you for a little code word that's been added to that form this year. And that's how non-parent pickup works. If they do come and they don't have a parking pass, that's just fine. They'll just tell the security guard, I'm picking up for Van Dam Academy, and they'll let you through there. Oh gosh, I was planning to set aside at least an hour in case there was a lot that I needed to go over. Well, if there's nothing more that needs to be gone over now, we can call it a day here and just, you can mingle with your parent reps or come ask me questions directly. Yes, Mrs. Mandel.
Can you address what happens? Pickup is from 2:35 until 3
Yes.
every day.
Mm-hmm.
So if we're running late by chance and it's going beyond 3, what are the options for the parent?
Okay, excellent. Yeah, so if you're running late, the thing that happens 99% of the time is the child goes to after-school care. There is an after-school care program that's available for a separate fee, and if it's an unplanned thing, at 3 o'clock they'll just be moved from the classroom to after-school care. We give like a 5-minute grace period before we charge a late pickup fee. But and we're pretty generous in understanding when it comes to Southern California traffic. But if it becomes a regular habitual thing, then we start to have a late pickup fee, which is $15 per time that you go past the 5-minute grace period and the child's in after-school care. Well, okay. If you'd like to come pick up the sheet with all the things I was talking about, it's right up here. And if you have any more questions to ask me directly, I'll be here for another 20 minutes. Thank you, guys.